We were meant to live in deep relation, and through colonization, we became separated, fragmented, and unwell. As a solution, the colonizer introduced Western therapy, but it only locked us further into hyper-individuality, and this is largely why we are suffering and unable to create change on a global scale. Saludos, I'm Dr.Rosales. I'm a seer, a medicine woman, and a counseling psychology PhD. And if you've been feeling called to therapy but are concerned about its colonial origins, this video is for you. The first teaching is that Western therapy as an institution promotes hyper-individuality. In this way, it continues the harm of colonization. It programs us to collude with a colonial agenda. It keeps us in separation and fragmentation and defines wellness and mental health on individual terms. Western therapy mostly focuses on our thoughts and our individual emotions and treats us as existing in a vacuum. It even promotes self-care in times of genocides and even an obsession with self-care, rather than encouraging people to take up their sacred responsibility to each other, to the land, and to be in connection with the spirits. It further promotes fragmentation and continues the paradigm of colonization. Even in times of collective crisis, even in times of climate crisis, Western therapy continues to have us focusing on ourselves and even promotes boundaries. Now, to be clear, the issue is not with self-care or boundaries. Yes, these are important, but the issue is that Western therapy exclusively focuses on them and continues to program people to further separate themselves, even when we are in a global crisis where the prophecies of many indigenous nations speak to our need to come together and create a new world. Western therapy pushes us in the opposite direction and has us numbing ourselves and neglecting the pain of the collective in the name of self-care, in the name of boundaries, because it's bad for our mental health. This is colonial indoctrination. Yes, this is intentional. Western therapy is designed to keep us unwell and to keep us complicit in a colonial agenda. I understand that we've been taught to see it as benevolent and something that is meant to help us and to heal us, but a therapy that is disconnected from the land, disconnected from the spirits, and disconnected from our sacred responsibility to each other and the collective is not healing at all. It is the antithesis of healing, and it is meant to promote a colonial agenda. If you've benefited from what I've shared today, I want to invite you to join my mailing list in the link in description, where you will receive a guided meditation, a guided journal workbook, and weekly messages to support you on your decolonial and spiritual journey. The second teaching is that therapists are not entirely to blame. This is a systemic issue, and this is a function of living in a colonial capitalist patriarchy. The same colonial paradigm that colonized our communities, colonized therapists too. And maybe their programming is even deeper because they've received advanced programming, or what we call higher education or training, to collude with a colonial paradigm. Of course, this happened unconsciously. And so here I'm also speaking to the therapists that are here. You have been programmed to do the colonizers' work for them. And of course, this happened without your consent. You were trained to continue the harm and the fragmentation of colonization. And this shows up as being trained to offer therapy that is disconnected from the land, from the spirits, from your lineage, from your own humanity. You have been trained to show up on the defense and even disembodied And we call that professionalism. You have been trained not to show up as your full self, and instead in a robotic way as a persona of a therapist, a European male therapist, rather than really showing up in your medicine. This not only causes harm to you and your soul and your medicine, but also to the people that are showing up with you, because you perpetuate a colonial paradigm and a colonial way of life, and you also rob them of being in deep relation with you. This relationship and these connections with all of the realms is what offers true healing. And so here, I just want to take a moment and to invite you to feel what might be coming up for you as a therapist, and to going back to that initial intention and that initial hope that you had in helping your communities, in learning more about helping and healing, and that was something that made you vulnerable to the colonizer. They took your vulnerability to want to help your communities, and they programmed you to extract from your medicine so that you can then colonize the people coming to you. Of course, this was not intentional, but it is also important to make things right, to decolonize your practice, to unlearn the ways that you have been programmed by the colonizer. And so this means that you too need to go through a process of healing and unlearning so that you do not cause harm to the communities and the people that are coming to you. This is an ethical issue. Once you are aware that you have been programmed to colonize the people and to collude with a colonial paradigm, you now have a responsibility to make things right so that you are not a perpetrator of colonial violence, and instead can bring healing, true healing, to your communities. I want to remind you that it does not have to be this way. And I offer these teachings and these activations to call you in to co-create a new paradigm of care. We no longer have to be complicit with the colonizer. If we come together and do our inner work and birth a new paradigm together, we can create a better world. It is my hope that from today's video, you can begin to understand that our healing and therapy must be deeply connected to the land, to the spirits, and to our relations, and so that you can be part of co-creating a new paradigm of care in which we are all well.